starting at 4:30.
There's been another huge federal data hack, and many federal government employees' data has been breached. What about the privacy of this? Who's done it and why? We'll talk to cybersecurity expert Albert Well about it. It's just one of the subjects we're going to cover on today's edition of Pittsburgh Now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pittsburgh Now. I'm Chris Moore, the Moore of Pittsburgh. Our number here is 412-333-PCNC. You know, this is about the third huge data hack that has happened with the federal government. Even President Obama is not immune, as some of his non-secure or non-secret emails have been hacked and opened to these people who are about this dastardly business. Now a huge federal government report about a data hack that involves a lot of federal employees, the company that does the security clearances for them and more. It's released all their names, addresses, social security numbers, and all the rest. Not long ago on this very program, we ran a story about people who were stealing identities and getting people's unemployment benefits, claiming they were unemployed. All they needed was the social security number, the name, and the address, and they went about their business. I will never forget that years ago I talked to an FBI agent who told me that they have to keep up with more than just the bank robbers who would go in with a weapon somehow and stick up a bank. Now it's cybercrime, and it is raging. And could some of these attacks be coming from foreign countries like China or Russia? That's what federal officials say. We'll see what Albert Well says when we talk to him about this huge data hack and what it means for cybersecurity for the federal government. Do they need to keep up? Are they behind in terms of the pacing and what these criminals can do? We're also going to talk to him about social media and the way ISIS is using it to recruit homegrown terrorists. We know the case of Mr. Ram in New York that the police killed not too long ago, and they're all reporting that he had been radicalized on social media in order to go out and first behead someone and then kill cops. Fortunately, they stopped him from doing that. All that it was reported that he would do, and he no longer exists. But what about social media and how the terrorists are recruiting people right here, saying don't come to the battlefield in the Middle East and fight, just attack people right there in America? How many lone wolves do they need to recruit who are disaffected with the American system and could be recruited to their cause? And how effective is their use of social media to do that? We'll ask Albert Well about that. Later in the program, we're going to talk about cars and car buying. We're going to talk about the pink tax. Do women actually pay more for cars when they go out and shop? Is a woman likely to go back to a dealership that she has visited? How many visits will she make to any particular dealership before she buys? And for just about everybody else out there in the car buying public, is it better to lease now than to buy? Especially with the average price of an automobile being around $31,000 now. More people are getting into leasing because they find they can cut their payments by about $100 a month. But if you drive a lot of miles, is leasing the thing for you, especially if they've restricted you to something like 10,000 miles a year? Can you get out of a lease when you get into it? If you need to get out of it early, is there a penalty for that? We're going to ask our guest, Ann Fleming, about that. She is a car buying advocate and the president of WomenDrivers.com. We'll talk to Ann later in the program. If you're interested in any of those subjects, we urge you to dial in. First up, we're going to talk about this huge data hack, how the federal government needs to catch up and protect itself from people, whether they're foreign powers, domestic terrorists, or anything else. What can you do? What do you need to know? Our number is 412-333-PCNC. I hope you'll stay with us throughout the entire show. We've got a lot of good information for you on this edition of Pittsburgh Now. We're Word came down yesterday from the federal government of a reported huge attack, reportedly coming from inside China on the federal agency that ensures all and investigates personnel records for federal government employees. What does this mean for you, me, and those employees? Let's turn to this report from Andrea Mitchell.
Officials say this could be the biggest cyber attack in American history. The culprit, they say, China. As many as 4 million current and former government employees have been told their personal information, including names, social security numbers, and birthdays, could have been hacked from the Office of Personnel Management, the agency that screens and hires federal workers and does security clearances for 90% of the federal government. Tonight, the Obama administration is scrambling to assess the damage and warning millions of government employees that they should monitor their bank accounts and will get government help with credit reports and identity theft insurance. Officials also tell NBC News the data breach involved a never-before-seen cyber indicator and could potentially affect every federal agency. The FBI is investigating, but in the past, cyber attacks from China have come from this Chinese army building in Shanghai. This comes after last year's suspected North Korean attack on Sony and reports that Russia had hacked the White House, State Department, and IRS, including President Obama's emails. Today, before this cyber attack was disclosed, Intelligence Committee member Senator Ron Wyden told NBC News,
I continue to feel that it is very important that we ramp up our efforts to go after foreign hackers and foreign threats.
U.S. officials say that this breach is serious, but it could not be the worst-case scenario, they hope. That would involve the disclosure of the identities of the CIA's covert agents. So far, at least, they do not think that the CIA covers have been blown.
Albert Well is President and Chief Security Officer of IT Security Incorporated. Mr. Well, welcome to the program. Welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing well, Chris. Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's talk about this attack. First of all, is the federal government that far behind in cybersecurity?
Well, that's a good question. I know that they have specific policies and procedures, but there may be some funding that needs to be increased in order for them to do more efficient determination on the security of their environments.
But here's the thing. This is, as Andrea Mitchell reports, the third attack in some time. The Koreans are expected or suspected of the attack on Sony. Now the Chinese, the Russians. How can we protect ourselves, both companies like Sony and the federal government?
Well, we need to do a little more due diligence as far as investigating the security in our networks and what we are actually putting onto the Internet to make things more convenient, because the convenience is both a two-way, double-edged sword. It's convenient for us. It's also convenient for the hackers.
What do you think inspires these kinds of attacks? Andrea Mitchell's report talked about this attack reportedly coming from a military building inside of China. What are we to do? As Mr. Wyden says, we should go after foreign attackers. How do we go after them? We're going to do bomb the building? I don't know. How do you go after them?
Well, we do know who's behind it. If it is the military side of China, it's the Chinese Blue Army, the world's largest government-backed hacking force. We've already had the FBI here in Pittsburgh that indicted 5 of the chief generals for that force to try to make everybody more aware of the events going on. What do we do after we know that it's them? I don't think that escalating this situation is going to resolve anything. We know that damage has been done. So I believe that we need to maintain and try to minimize the scope of this damage by maximizing our potential for understanding, potentially blocking this information, and providing better monitoring and penetration testing of our environments.
So you maintain that the best offense here is a good defense?
The best offense here is knowing your attacker, we know who that is, and being able to mitigate the issue before it presents itself any further. if we go into an offensive posture, I don't believe anybody wants this to escalate further than it is.
Well, we've been in an offensive posture before. We've used the Stuxnet virus against countries like Iran to disrupt their nuclear capability. Is this just something that we need to expect, like the Cold War, that there's going to be a computer or cyber war between all sorts of countries and nationalities?
I'm not going to comment on that any further because of issues that are based on national security. How's that?
Well, that tells me something. That tells me that we're involved in this kind of stuff too. And I don't know what the Chinese are reporting, but it makes me wonder, and I know you're not going to comment on it, but it makes me wonder what the United States government is doing to other countries or other peoples.
Well, I believe that they're doing what is best for the American people. I believe that because in my heart of hearts, we all want to do what is good for this country. Are we out to attack and demilitarize the rest of the world? I don't believe so.
Okay.
Can we do a different attacks on the internet? Yes, but what does that actually accomplish? So you have to really try to identify what is your purpose and what is your goal. And after you have a goal, then you have to figure out what are your requirements so that you can move forward.
If foreign governments are capable of hacking this kind of data, how capable are they of attacking us through our electronic grid or anything else and bringing down electricity, water services, any of those things that we as Americans take for granted?
The possibility exists. I know that we're working due diligently to minimize the potential threat vectors that are available on the internet. The only way to totally secure those networks without extensive expense in security devices is to take them off the internet for right now. That would be the quickest thing to do.
How does this stuff work in terms of escalation? If they attack and we prepare a better defense, do they sit there and figure out how to get around that defense? Is it something that always escalates and you have to be prepared for a new way that these guys are going to come against us?
That's a good question. So, electronically, they can work at one way, and we can close the door on each of the connections that appears to be attempting to get more information. But furthermore, espionage has always been done against other countries and in this country itself. So by contacting people that are willing to disclose trade secrets or military secrets or networking secrets, they might be able to get a handle on a backdoor which was previously unknown.
Wow, you have to always be on guard. All right, Andrew Mitchell said that the federal government was going to offer low-cost insurance to all the people whose data had been breached. But what would you recommend personally beyond what she reported, watch your bank account? It might be a little bit late for that.
Well, watch your bank account and keep an eye on your credit reports as well. I mean, the bank account is one thing, but if they've stolen your identity and they're selling your insurance information or your Social Security number to somebody else, this isn't going to be a threat that lasts a year, which is what most of these insurance packages are. This is a massive data collection, and it's a potential collection of data that they never had before, so they can connect the dots with other pieces of information which have been collected from other breaches.
So what's the primary cause of this? Is it espionage, or is it making money, selling this to other people or criminals who would use your identity to go and make money off of who you are? What's the motivation, espionage or theft?
Well, I believe that they're both connected, aren't they?
Well, I'm asking you. You're the expert. I don't know.
Yeah, in my mind, they're both connected. Whether you're creating espionage or you're making money on it, even espionage at one point in time to get the data from another country so that you can have the inherent intelligence in your own backyard, that's a moneymaker for me. So, I believe that they're connected in one way, shape, or another back to the money.
Yeah, this particular attack seems to be related to making some money if they have all of that data from all these employees where they can steal their identities. But what happens if they're able to hack something and steal nuclear codes and that kind of thing? That really gets to be scary then. Do you think anybody has that capability inside of a foreign government?
No comment.
No.
What do you want me to say? I can't confirm nor deny it.
Well, I guess if that's all you can say, that's all. That's telling within itself. All right. I want to ask you in a moment, after we take this break that's coming up, about cybersecurity when it comes to the internet and recruitment of terrorists. Can you answer any questions about that?
I can try. I can sure try.
All right, then. I appreciate that. All right, our number here is 412-333-PCNC. We're talking about a massive data breach of the federal government that could put federal employees' identities at stake. What needs to be done about it? We're talking to a cybersecurity expert. His name is Albert Whale. Our number here is 412-333-PCNC. When we return, we'll talk about the use of social media to recruit terrorists here in the homeland. Stay with us. We're talking about a lot of things, the terrorists and how they are breaching federal data. We are going to move our conversation along to ISIS and how they use social media to recruit disaffected people here in the homeland to attack Americans. They seem to have an effective method of doing so, and the federal government, again, in this case, lags behind them in trying to keep up with the recruitment tools that ISIS is using in social media. For more background on this, let's turn to NBC's Pete Williams.
The FBI's claim that it disrupted a Boston plot to attack police officers is the main hallway talk at a meeting today of big city police chiefs in Phoenix. Officials say last fall's hatchet attack on a New York City police officer and this week's plot to attack police in Massachusetts were both inspired by calls on ISIS social media to go after people in uniform, including police.
It's a continuing, growing threat to this country. It's a very big wild card, and law enforcement has to constantly look for new strategies to try to combat this.
The FBI says that after ordering 3 knives online last week, Osama Rahim of Boston at first planned to behead someone in New York. Pamela Geller, who organized last month's Draw Muhammad contest in Texas.
I think it was more along the lines of wishful thinking, but we had 24/7 surveillance on him, and we were monitoring all potential targets.
But the FBI says Rahim abruptly changed his mind Tuesday morning and told a friend he would begin attacking police that very day. Law enforcement officials say he called his father that morning to say, quote, "You're not going to see me again after today." In Boston today, his brother and lawyers for the family said he was killed before police even had legal authority to arrest him.
The family hopes to work productively and cooperatively with federal and local authorities in a joint effort to search for truth.
Investigators are questioning a Rhode Island man after searching his house for 2 days. Officials say he knew about some of Rahim's plans. He has not been charged. Pete Williams, NBC News, Boston.
Albert Whale is our guest. He is President and Chief Security Officer of IT Security Incorporated. Albert, are we behind again when it comes to social media and what ISIS is doing to recruit disaffected people here in the homeland?
I don't believe so. We invented the internet, right? Mm-hmm. And we also invented the social media networks that are living on this internet, which has connected us all globally. So it's making it a lot easier for these kinds of organizations to potentially recruit new candidates. But we already know who's out there. And obviously, with yesterday's takedown, we're doing a very good job of monitoring these environments and these networks for finding out what's going on.
So then police in Boston, Houston, big cities everywhere are going to have to be ever vigilant and alert and use social media to track these guys too?
Well, I'm not sure if it's going to be a centralized repository or collection or intelligence environment that's going to do it, but certainly somebody contact people to let them know that there's somebody on a watch list, so to speak, that may be of interest for them to keep their eyes out on.
So I wonder, though, what happens in a smaller town. Big cities may have the resources to devote to this. How can you protect everywhere?
Well, that's a good question. How can you protect everywhere? And I guess, you know, they may be able to hide in the outskirts of town or outskirts of the populated areas, but certainly with as much monitoring as going on now, if they're being identified as a person of interest, we'll find out when they come out of hiding.
You know, not long ago on this program, we ran a report on how cell phones can track where you are. You know, you take a picture and it knows that you took it here in Pittsburgh. If you fly to San Diego, it knows that you did it there. I saw a report recently where a terrorist took a picture in front of an ISIS command and control building, and 22 hours later, it was leveled to the ground because people in the United States military were able to use the same kind of tracking device there. I guess the terrorists are going to have to get a little bit more sophisticated about this stuff, too.
Isn't technology a wonderful thing?
Well, when it comes to killing people, I guess so. It's a whole brand new way of conducting warfare, I guess.
It is a new way of directing warfare. And fortunately, we don't have another Normandy invasion where we're losing hundreds of thousands of troops. It's a war of attrition, and that attrition needs to come from the people up above, but it seems like once you chop the head of the Hydra off, you get two more in its place, right?
It sure seems that way. We've interviewed people like Luke Peterson from the University of Pittsburgh, a Middle East specialist, who says that every time we attack someone, and I don't know how many times we've killed the #2 person in Al-Qaeda, ISIS, or anything else, as you said, it's like a many-headed Hydra. Two more seem to jump in and take their place. We're going to continue this for a long, long time. How much of it is going to be done on social media or through cyber attacks, you think?
I think recruitment has evolved almost exclusively to the Internet, but I think if we want to dismantle this regime, that we need to do it face-to-face, hand-to-hand, and family-to-family.
Boy, that sounds like boots on the ground talk to me. I don't know if the American people will go for that. Do you think the American people are informed enough about cyber terrorism? What do they need to know to protect themselves?
Well, first of all, I hope it's not boots on the ground, but it's more of a brother-to-brother type of relationship that goes out there and shows people that we're not as pointed as the devil as they might have been led to believe. And do I believe that the American people understand what's going on the Internet? No, I think that they've been told that this is a useful tool and go ahead and use it, and they just don't know what they don't know.
All right, let me turn to a domestic issue here and the Internet. What do you need to do to protect yourself here? All my friends in news, once someone is accused of some sort of dastardly crime, the first thing they do is, with their person's name, is start searching Facebook and other social media, Twitter and all these things, to see if anybody has put up something that's really weird that makes them look strange or look even guilty. What do you recommend individually that people do when they're on social media to protect themselves?
So I believe that if you're on social media, you should minimize what you say about your activities, about your friends, about your feelings, about anything that's going on in your life, other than trying to find out, you know, the schedule for the local community fair or things of that nature, because these things don't belong to you after you've posted it, and getting them offline is entirely difficult. It's like kids today posting on Instagram and Snapchat, although they call Snapchat something that deletes the image after you've taken the picture, right? Mm-hmm. But I can't guarantee that the image is taken away from the hard drive, because even if files are deleted from the computer, that doesn't mean that the data has been erased.
So you have to be very careful about all this stuff. Do you think, as we've reported before on this program, that companies now have the right to ask you for your password to all your social media devices as a recruiting tool and a determining tool to find out whether they want to hire you or not?
So I don't believe that they're entitled to your password, because you can have a public-facing social media environment, and you can also restrict access to your personal private thoughts to your immediate family, your brothers and sisters, and people that you know and respect. And whether somebody else is authorized to get inside your head to determine, whether or not they want to employ you, I don't believe that that's necessary, even in today's society.
Nevertheless, you should be very careful about what you post, because once it's out there, right?
It's out there, and not only is it out on the servers that you see that you're logged into, but there are other robots and data collection tools that are going out and monitoring what's going on to social media globally.
And I guess the last thing I'd ask you about is passwords. How secure are they when people use simple passwords?
Well, simple passwords are like an open door, all right? Passwords are one of the easiest things that people can do to help protect themselves. And if a group of people are collected together and know each other, and one person has a simple password or a dictionary word, then they're allowing people to come into their account and collect information not only from themselves but also other people connected to them in social media.
Albert, well, thank you very much. We appreciate your expertise, sir.
Well, thank you for having me, Chris, and please call back again.
All right, we will. All right, I'm Chris Moore. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about women and the pink tax, buying cars, and a lot more. I hope you'll stay with us. Just last week on this program, we talked about the pink tax, women paying more for various products, including cars, than men do. It's very unfair, but sometimes it happens. We want to know more about that, and in a moment, we're going to talk to Ann Fleming about it. But first, we want to find out just about women and buying cars. Are they charged more? Let's take a look at this report from NBC's Jeff Rawson.
Car shopping can be a rough ride.
Can I get like $200-300 just to hold the car?
So this morning, we're doing the dirty work for you. Wiring up my producers Lindsay and Charlie with hidden cameras.
I think we're good to go.
Sending them undercover inside 10 Ford and Chevy dealerships.
Can you give me a full out-the-door price?
At each spot, they ask for the best out-the-door price.
I'm just looking for an out-the-door price.
On the same two cars at the Chevy dealerships.
I'm looking for like a 2015 Chevy Cruze.
Interested in the Chevy Cruze, the 2015 model.
And at the Ford dealerships.
I'm interested in the Ford Fusion.
I'm interested in the Ford Fusion.
Charlie and Lindsay visited each dealership on the same day, talking to whichever salesperson approached them first. And they made it clear they want the standard base model. This Yale study repeatedly showing females are offered on average prices $200 higher than white males.
Okay, she's walking in.
I'm watching everything from this car parked out front. Things start off great at this Chevy dealership.
Good, how are you?
Charlie and Lindsay quoted the exact same price.
That's that.
$465.
$20,465.
Right down to the penny.
Okay, so $20,465.
But things are about to change.
Time to make another trip inside. Sure, come on, show you the car.
At this next Chevy dealer, Charlie gets this price.
Looking at $21,000 out the door.
$21,000 out the door today.
Yeah, today.
But when Lindsay asks about the same car on the very same day,
Total out the door price would be this: $21,335.35.
So bottom line, $21,335. Okay.
that's hundreds of dollars more. $335 more to be precise. The dealership manager telling NBC News his salespeople don't recall Charlie and Lindsay, and prices can fluctuate for various reasons.
On to the next one.
But the biggest surprises are yet to come. Lindsay's price on a Ford Fusion at this dealership?
$24,000.
Yes, ma'am.
$404.
You got it.
But listen to Charlie's quote.
So it'd be $25,142.50.
$25,142.50.
Correct.
That's right, things just flipped. Charlie quoted almost $750 more. The manager later saying this much of a price difference is unusual, and they strive not to oversell, but prices can change all the time. But fasten your seatbelts and watch what happens at this last Ford dealership. Lindsay's price?
$21,203.
$21,203.
And Charlie's price?
So I'm looking at $23,500 out the door for the 2015. Right.
Sorry, Charlie. He just got hit again. Almost $2,300 more for the exact same car. Lindsay gets the better deal by far. We shared our results with the car coach, consumer car expert Lauren Fix.
It's great news for women.
Progress.
Progress. I'd like to say it is progress.
In the end, of the 10 dealers they visited, 4 dealerships gave the same price, 3 dealerships gave Lindsay a higher price, and 3 dealerships gave Charlie a higher price. But when you add it all up, Charlie's prices were $3,100 higher than Lindsay's.
Are you surprised by our results?
I'm a bit surprised about the results, but it's nice to know that new car dealers are paying attention. Women make 85% of the buying decision, and they're paying big attention to that.
And we're back, and we're joined by Ann Fleming, who is president of WomenDrivers.com, and she's a car buying advocate. Are you surprised at any of these results that the man was charged more?
Well, first I want to say it was a very small sample size, Chris, and I was actually not surprised. I was looking at the fact that how far the industry has come, that looking at Lindsay's results, it really shows that dealers are paying attention, that women now represent over 53% of all cars purchased at new car dealers, and they influence, as Lauren said, 8 out of every 10 purchases. And just to put that into a context numerically, last year alone at new car dealerships, women purchased 13 million new and used cars, and that's 35,000 units a day. So I think dealers really have been and are paying attention to the buying power of women. As it relates to Charlie specifically, again, it's a small sample size. I would hate to say it's reverse discrimination, but there are over 17,000 dealers, and each dealership, as we were talking offline, has its own numbers. So, you know, that was surprising that there was such a variance.
How did you come to found WomenDrivers.com?
Well, I bought a car locally, and I wanted to write a review. I had a fantastic experience, and it was a rather large dealership here in Pittsburgh, and I was given the owner's email to share my experience because they weren't they didn't have a platform to which I could leave a public review. And so I got a little frustrated with that and started my own platform where women specifically could write review, because I recognized I was in marketing for a publicly traded company, and I recognized the purchasing power of women.
What's been the response from women?
Well, it's been fantastic. We actually got a lot of lift in the company about 2 years ago because we got investors in the company, and so we are recognized as a national player. The whole review platform has really blossomed over the past 5 or 6 years. Auto Trader, Google, Yelp. There are many players that work both for consumers, I should say reviews work for consumers and dealers alike, because they bring these two consumers and dealers together, and that's certainly what our company does. Women rely on reviews about 50% more than men.
How many women, you say 50% more, are women more likely to go to a dealer's website or some other platform like the ones that you have mentioned when they're shopping for a
Yes,
car?
because reviews are so important to women. Women want to get it right. I mean, we can just look back historically and we can say that the red carpet always hasn't been rolled out for women. I mean, we can make that assertion. I think that Yale study pointed to that. So women rely on reviews 50% more than men, first of all. And second of all, when they do, they go to dealers. They want to go to dealers that already have a trusted relationship with their consumers. So dealer reviews are very, very important, not only to all consumers, but especially to women.
All right. Ann Fleming is our guest. She is a car buying advocate and the president of womendrivers.com. We're talking about car buying, especially when it comes to the chief decision makers in the household, and we know that that's women. We're going to return. If you have a question or comment, our number is 412-333-PCNC. There's lots more to talk about with Ann in just a second. Stay with us. Ann Fleming is our guest. She is president of womendrivers.com. The most important thing when anyone is buying a car, I would imagine, would be to do your homework.
Well, I think that's one of the things that NBC, the NBC piece, you could really take away from that. Rather than looking at it men versus women, I think there's some takeaways from that. Rather than just going into a dealership on any given day, is to do your homework. I mean, we all live in the world of, you know, the internet, and there's so much available on the internet today. We walk around with computers in our hands today. And so looking at what dealership to go to. We certainly can shop online, getting quotes from 3 or 4 dealerships, and then obviously ascertaining what dealership do I want to give my business to, because it certainly isn't just about the sale. It's not just about the one-time sale. It's about a longer-term relationship. And I think...
So if you have a good experience, you're likely to go back and deal with that dealer, right?
Oh, no question. It's not just about going in for service, but then, you know, we might spend a little bit of time talking about leasing. If you have a great experience with that dealership, you're going to lease there again and again. And more dealerships don't just have one brand; they have families of brands. So maybe you've been leasing a Chevrolet. Next time you might buy, you might lease a different brand. So staying within that family is very important to dealerships. So they recognize that, and they want you to have a really good experience from the get-go. So the sale is just one aspect. That's getting you in the door. Having you stay with them on the long term is much more important to a dealership.
And dealers recognize that.
Oh, no question.
Historically, though, you talked a little bit before about how things have changed for women when they buy cars. Recently, I took my daughter Rashina looking for a car, and we visited a couple of dealerships, and she wanted me to go because she felt that there would be some sort of bias against a younger woman, and she didn't want to be taken advantage of. Of course, she handled her business, and I didn't have to say much, but she just felt more secure. Are women more likely to take a man with them when they go to buy a car?
It's a great question.
That's why I'm here.
So our review site, Women Drivers, we're a little bit different than what I'll call a 5-star, like maybe Auto Trader or Google or Yelp, right? So on our website, women write a review, whether on shopping, servicing, leasing, distinct from buying, or servicing. But after they write their review, there's a survey that comes up, and she gets to 92% of women actually opt into that survey, where there's 25 questions. Another big difference between men and women, because 9 out of 10 women nationally fill out this 25-question survey. And what women tell us is 45% of them go to the dealership and buy the car by themselves. 55% of women go and buy the car with someone else, and when they buy the car with someone else, 78% of them do take a man. Could be their spouse, could be their father, could be their male partner.
How many dealerships is a woman likely to visit? More than 2? And if they walk out of that dealership, are they likely to return?
Oh, that's a you're asking some great questions. So that's perfect. Women visit, on average, 30% more dealerships than men. Again, we talked a little bit about earlier, they want to get it right. They want to get it right. So they visit 30% more dealerships. Now,
that sounds better on the face of it, comparison shopping.
It is. If a woman has, and this is why it's so imperative for dealers to get it right with women, the very first time they visit, because if they have a positive engagement, even if she's just shopping that day, women don't, you know, women don't go to a dealership just to, oh, I'm just looking. She's there, perhaps she may just test drive a vehicle, but she'll be back. If she has a great experience at that dealership, she'll be back. If there's not a positive engagement, she will not be back. And by the way, in the world of social media, Chris, she may tell the world about it. So it is imperative and really behooves dealerships to get it right with women the very first visit.
Sometimes you just feel like you just can't get out of there, especially if you're trying to buy a used car. They want to hold on to you because they feel like if they let you go, they've let a fish get away.
Well, what's more important is to hire what we call salespeople with very high EQs. You know, the higher the EQ, meaning high on being empathetic, listening, asking questions, talk less and ask more questions. And by the way, one thing we do track on our website is the average length of time it takes women to buy a car, and it doesn't cost, it
takes longer?
It takes 3 hours and 20 minutes. So dealerships that can come up with ways to shorten that, because for women and men, time is money and money is time. So shortening that length is really, really important.
Ann Fleming is our guest. She's president of womendrivers.com. We're going to talk more with her in just a second, and we'll talk about leasing. With the rising price of cars, is leasing a good option? We'll ask Ann about that in just a second. Stay with us. Ann Fleming is our guest, and we're talking about cars. Let's talk about leasing. With the price of the average price of a new car being about $31,000, people are opting for leasing because your payment could be $100 less. So should I lease or should I buy?
Right. Well, that's a great question. And looking at the context, I mean, about a third of consumers today are opting for leasing, and there's a couple factors to that. As you indicated, the first is really financial. If we go back, Chris, to let's say 2008, the average car cost about $26,000. Today, I'm going to inch you up a little bit on that. The average car, if you're buying it, costs about $33,500.
Oh, I'd read $31,000.
Yeah, it's about $33,500. And of course, that's what that's all about, is really a lot of safety and technology features. I mean, we're consumers, and so we want, you know, all of the gadgets in our vehicle.
But isn't the federal government adding that with side airbags and all that? Doesn't that make the cost go up too?
Sure, certainly. And our HHRI, our household income, certainly is not rising at that rate. And
look, I had a '73 Chevy that had a big chrome bump on it that could bump something at 5 miles an hour and not have any damage. Now all the bumpers are plastic. You bump something at 5 miles an hour and you could have all sorts of damage to internal sensors and all kinds of stuff.
The airbag issue is a completely different, that's another topic. But really, it's becoming a financial issue for families, for women, for men. They really can't afford a new car like they used to, so leasing is becoming, you know, an option. The average lease price is about $400, and as you said, it's about $100 less a month. I
can remember when my dad bought a brand new '66 Chevy and paid $3,200 for it. Amazing what cars have gone to. Now, do you get to review cars and get to drive? We only have about a minute and a half left, and I want to get to that. Do you get to review them?
Yes, yes, we have a section on our site called His and Her Car Reviews, and so about 50 weeks out of the year, women drivers writes reviews. We test drive cars every single week. They come in from Washington, D.C., and we write reviews from really most of the brands.
What about men? Do you write them for men too?
Well, Don Hammonds, who has another website.
Personal friend of mine.
Do you know Don?
Oh, very
yes.
well.
Yeah, so we have a section called His and Her Car Reviews, and it gets syndicated out on social media, and so it gives women and men the opportunity to see the same exact vehicle from 2 points of view.
Okay, what's the website where people can go and learn about it?
Womendrivers.com, women-drivers.com. And women, predominantly, it's a great place to go to write a review about your dealership, but most importantly, to visit to determine what dealership you want to go to give your business to.
And we're out of time. Thank you very much.
Chris, thank you.
It's been pleasurable to talk to you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, I'm Chris Moore, back with one more thought in a second. From data hacking to new car buying, we cover the waterfront right here on Pittsburgh Now, and we'll always do it for you. I'm Chris Moore. It's time for me to get my hat. I hope you have a good day. Bye.